feet above his head and to swing himself with one solid tug onto an adjacent branch. He stands up with his arms raised and smiles down on me as if to say, "Life is great," and then we both laugh. It was under the umbrella of this big elm that my son played as a child. The house that stands before me, that holds so many memories, is where we lived when he was born. Patrick Daniel Tillman was full of life from the moment he came into the world at 9:39 on the morning of November 6, 1976, occipito posterior, facing up, a stargazer. He was brought home to this house, which is nestled in the rocky and wooded canyon of New Almaden, a California settlement developed in 1845 after a rich supply of quicksilver, mercury, was discovered there. Quicksilver was once a necessary component in processing gold and silver, as well as in manufacturing munitions, which led President Lincoln to seize the mines in 1863 for the duration of the Civil War. From the time I was 10 years old, the Civil War has fascinated me. Learning that New Almaden had in fact played a crucial role in that war made me feel we had moved to the perfect place. The mines operated under private ownership until the year Pat was born, when Santa Clara County purchased the surrounding property for a county park. These 4,000 acres, with their 20 miles of beautiful and rugged trails, is where I would take Pat for walks as a baby. He was not a cuddly infant. Actually, he was a little malcontent. He didn't like being swaddled and held like most babies. He preferred to be upright. I remember I would sit in a chair and hold him up so he could bounce on my knees until my arms got so tired I could no longer hold him. As an infant, Pat was quite sinewy, displaying his father's quick twitch muscles and the incredible coordination of his Uncle Rich. When he was 3 months old, his father and I got a back carrier for him. He was really too little to sit in it properly, so I'd stuff diapers all around him so he would fit snugly. It was from the back carrier that Pat got his first exposure to Quicksilver County Park. We would hike for hours while I described the sights. Along with the birds and squirrels, it was not unusual to see wild turkeys, families of quail, wild boar, or an occasional rattlesnake. On weekends, Pat's father and I also liked to take him on walks past the reservoir, 2 miles up the road. We loved living in this quaint, secluded place, but my husband's hour-long commute to Cupertino, where he worked, was grueling. So when Pat was 7 months old, we moved to Campbell, California, where our second son, Kevin, was born. About 6 months before Kevin's arrival, Pat went through a phase of regularly hurling himself out of the crib and onto the floor in protest of bedtime. He would crawl over to the bedroom door, put his hand through the crack underneath it, and howl. Out, out. You could see the little pink balls of his fingers, desperately seeking someone's attention. I would sit on the couch with a lump in my throat and tears rolling down my face. My pediatrician had told me I needed to let him cry, and eventually he would stop. And as a young mom, I still thought my doctor knew best. When Pat's crying stopped, his father and I would gently open the door to find him asleep, knees curled under him, diapered bottom in the air, and his hand still reaching through the space under the door. We would carefully lift him and place him back in the crib. After a week of this gut-wrenching ritual, we decided to get Pat a big boy bed with a railing on it. Pat never really crawled in the way babies do. To get around, he would hold a plastic donut in each hand and push them around the floor with his legs straight, butt in the air, and knees never touching the floor. He learned to walk when he was 8.5 months old. By the time Kevin was born on January 24th, 1978, 14-month-old Pat seemed very much a little man. Now the crib that had been so repellent to him just months before became a curiosity. It held his baby brother. Pat began climbing into the crib and carefully curling up next to Kevin, as if he had an innate sense that he could hurt the baby if he rolled over. Pat was quite pleased to have Kevin in his world and liked to help me bathe, feed, and change him. Pat did not like to nap. He hated the idea that he might miss something, but some days I needed him to take a nap, so I would sit on the floor with Kevin in the infant seat next to me and read aloud as Pat played.